Hey, everybody, and welcome to the PowerHouse Fence Show. I'm Dan Turbyville, and no Zach today. I'm here alone. Zach, I think we told you a couple weeks ago about some gates we built that were failing on a job site, and he went with the crew out there today to get those replaced with the new gates that we built, and they're still not back. So here we are. Um, as always, we're presented by Memphis Fence Company, MFC Manufacturing, Simpalo, and the Thornton Fence Consulting Group. We're just a few days away from the Spring Super Summit in Salt Lake City. I checked today, and there are still hotel rooms available at the I don't remember the name of the hotel, but whichever hotel he suggested that you stay at, there are rooms available still. So if you want to go, you can make a last minute reservation, hop on a plane, and be out there next week and check it out. Um, kind of jealous. I'd like to be going to Salt Lake City right now and do a little skiing and hang out at the Spring Super Summit. It would be pretty cool. So I am live. The phone number's scrolling on the bottom of the screen like normal, 901-878-4987. If you want to call in, we can talk about whatever's on your mind. And as always, we want to just say thank you to all the listeners, everybody that tunes in and listens to the podcast and everything. We talked last week about how we have listeners all over the world now. So that's pretty cool. And we're doing it for you. So, as always, if there is something you want to hear us talk about or some subject or a guest or whatever, let us know and we'll do our best to make that happen. So, today we're going to talk a little bit more about selling commercial fence. We did an episode that was back in January, maybe like late January, that was called Selling Commercial 101. And we kind of introduced this, I don't know, concept or topic or whatever a little bit, and we talked about selling more in like the business to business commercial world, which also is a great market for people to be in. I think most people think about like general contractors when you think about selling commercial fence, but also that business to business world is good stuff. And you can build a network of local companies that will call you when they have repairs, or if they want to do some renovations or rearranging their facility and stuff like that, and it works out pretty well. We do a lot of repairs here, and truck drivers, they love to hit fence, and when they do, then we get a phone call and we get to go out there and do the repairs. So that's all great. It's definitely a way that you can make a living. So today I hope to get a little bit more into like that general contractor world and kind of explore that a little bit. This is going to be kind of like an ongoing series. So whatever we don't get to today, we'll pick up on it maybe next week. So, Ilaria, are we going to try to do an Italian word this week?
Yes, let's do it.
Oh boy. Okay. So the word that I chose is contractor.
Um,
As she pulls out Google Translate.
I'm not joking. Yes.
Yeah, for real. That's what's going on right now.
Um,
You don't use that word?
I no, yes, but I was trying to figure out the right context. I think it's appaltatore.
Oh my goodness. It's what?
Appaltatore.
Appaltatore.
Okay, that wasn't too bad.
Look at that. I'm getting better.
Yeah, you are.
I told Alyssa the other day, I said, we need to do a test of all Italian words. And she said, do you remember them? I said, not a single one. So I don't know what the point of that would be. Maybe we could go back through a few of them.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'm failing as a teacher.
Right. Well, doing it one time, once a week, probably is not how you learn
It's just that
anything.
you're not do your homework.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I'm doing good to stay on top of the things I already have. All right. So first of all, I wanted to talk about a comment that I saw in the Fence Industry Only group. It was posted by Oscar Santana, and if I did a terrible job at that name, I do apologize. And the question was, for those who do commercial work on a regular basis, what equipment should every commercial fence installer have? And I just thought I'd kind of dive into that a little bit here. Um, it's it's a hard question. Oh, and that's the case with a lot of questions that people ask on there. You really need more information to be able to answer the question. Like, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to go sell jobs to general contractors? Are you trying to operate in that like business to business world? Are you trying to do a $10,000 job or a $10 million job? Like, that there's a lot of information that's missing. But I did write down some thoughts here and thought I'd run through them. So the first tool that you're going to need is cash. You've got to understand how the billing process works for general contractors before you even like set foot going down that road. It's a lot different than it is in the residential world. Business to business world can be fairly similar, but it's still not quite the same. We did an episode on that. It was called Cash is King, and it was our third episode that we ever did, I believe. So go back and check that out if you want to hear more about like the billing cycle and stuff like that. And we'll probably touch on that periodically because it is a very important concept for people to understand in the commercial fence world. Um, and so I would answer this question if I could only give one. And I would say I think it's more important to understand what you have and the capability that you have with what you're working with. So, don't bid something that's not feasible for you to go out and do. You want to work within your world. And so if you only have a pair of postal diggers, like bid a job that only takes a pair of postal diggers. In like the, business to business service world, you can go out and you can patch a hole in a fence. You can do that with a car and a pair of pliers and a pull jack. You don't need a lot of equipment and a lot of tools and anything to do that. And if that's what you're starting off with, then like, do the jobs that you can do and build up until you get to something bigger. I like to kind of, I don't know, hit on that point a lot of like just do what you can do, right? And, understand your capabilities, work within what's feasibly possible for you to do, and don't go out there and jump in over your head. You'll get burned pretty quick if you dive in too far. I think it's okay to do stuff that you're uncomfortable with. Don't get me wrong. Like don't always operate inside your comfort zone, but at the same time, don't go bid something that's 10 times the size of what you should be doing. So you can always start small and you can grow. You can add more equipment, add more tools, add more people. So that's a huge part of the equation is the people that you have available for you. You can have all the equipment in the world, and if you don't have the people to put in the seats or to run the equipment or anything, then like you're you're still not making much progress. You just got a bunch of money sitting there not doing anything. Um, so have the people, know the job that you can do, and bid jobs accordingly. There's jobs of all sizes. We've talked several times about how we were looking for an estimator project manager. So we hired someone and he started today. And I had a conversation pretty similar to that with him. And I just told him, like, a lot of the jobs that we see, it might be just a dumpster gate. Right. So, I mean, not anything super exciting, but it still adds up. And every little job that you do adds up. And eventually you'll get where you want to go. The size of the job determines the number of jobs that you need to do. But sometimes we see jobs that are, pretty big. And like he could sell half of his goal, half of his annual sales goal could be one job, or, you know, all of his annual sales goal could be just one job if you land the right one. But people are a big part of the equation, and you've got to get the right people in the right place and give them the right training. And that's not easy. Uh, it's it's something that takes a while, and you got to have people that are willing to, kind of adapt and work with you a little bit. If you hire somebody to do, we're really bad about this. We do it a lot. We'll hire somebody to do one job, and then, well, I said we're bad about it. I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing, but we do it. We'll hire somebody to do one job, and then we kind of figure out like, wait a minute, you could be doing this, and I think you'd be better at that. And so, sometimes we'll have people that kind of like bounce around between different roles until we find a good fit for them. We had Donnie on the show sometime last year, and Donnie was an example of that, where he had done several different jobs and kind of bounced around until we found what seems to be a pretty good fit for him right now. And then Ilaria, we just keep giving her more jobs.
Yeah.
So we were talking today about how we want to try to do some videos and start doing like at least once a month, maybe put out like a 10-minute or so video on YouTube, and try to get into that world a little bit. And that's a pretty big undertaking. If you've never edited a 10-minute long video, like, you're going to be there for a bit. So how much time do you spend editing a 60-second reel?
It depends, but if I'm doing everything like transitions and changing the speed and light, I would say like an hour sometimes.
An hour for
Yeah.
a 60-second long video. So imagine a 10-minute, I mean, if the math works, that could be 10 hours to do that one video.
Yeah.
So, anyways, back to the whole question about the equipment. So, you got to think about where the job is too. Like, if you're going after a specific job, where is it? Is it next door to your shop, or is it 100 miles from anything? I mean, if this job is out in the middle of nowhere and you can't go buy a tool or can't go buy a part or something like that, you're probably going to want to have some spares on your truck. I personally, on my fence truck, I have like a whole array of tools. I mean, I have a whole shop's worth of tools on there. And I mean, I try to keep like some spare parts and stuff like that for whatever I'm using that I know has a tendency of breaking. Um, so I used to farm, and I would try to keep, a bunch of spare fittings and hoses and stuff like that on hand all the time, because you get out there and that thing breaks, and then, you got to load up and leave and go find what you need. And that's always just a pain in the butt. Mr. Shane Catton, how's it going? Thanks for stopping by. So, again, I think the location of the job kind of plays a role in what you're going to have on the truck, and the tools and equipment and stuff like that that you need to have on hand too. Um, Now, as far as like what kind of equipment we have, so let's say if we're doing a job that's like 5,000 foot of 8-foot commercial chain link, let's just take that as an example. So obviously we're going to have a truck and we're going to have a trailer. The We'll have a truck big enough to haul a trailer with a skid steer at minimum. Normally, we try to have trucks that like we can haul top rail on and things like that if we're doing bigger jobs, because 21-foot rail, you got to get it there somehow. We don't really like to leave material on the job site, just for fear of it getting damaged or walking off or something like that. We normally kind of just haul stuff to the job as we're using it. There are always exceptions to everything, but as a general rule of thumb, that's kind of what we try to do. So we'll have the truck and trailer. We'll have a skid steer. If you're going to haul a skid steer, mini excavator, any kind of heavy equipment, you need to have some chains and binders. All right, they're not cheap. I know they're more expensive than you can go buy a 2-inch yellow strap for, but you need to have something that's rated to hold that piece of equipment on there. And I see people all the time, they'll just put a track skid steer on the trailer and just leave it. They don't even tie it down with anything. So don't do that. Seth, how's it going? Good to see you. Don't don't just put your equipment on there and just leave it and let it stay on by hopes and prayers and stuff. It's probably fine if you're just driving around. But what happens if you get in a wreck? Like, I personally don't want a 10,000-pound skid steer coming in the truck with me. I've heard stories about people that have had wrecks and the machine stayed on the trailer and flipped down the middle of the interstate, but it stayed attached to the trailer. So I am a huge advocate for tying stuff down. Mentioned that I used to farm. I would haul my tractor with a baler attached to the back of it, and I would have like 4 chains on that thing and 6 straps. I mean, it would be tied down all kinds of crazy, but pneumatic tire stuff is a little bit different. It'll bounce around some, and hay balers are really bad about it. They've got like big flotation tires on them, and those things bounce around a ton. But anyways, Truck, trailer, skid steer, tied down properly, please. You want, I would say at minimum for like attachments and stuff like that, you probably want a decent set of forks, right? You got to haul material around. So a set of forks is going to be a must. And then you want a bucket. If I mean, you got to haul dirt, you got to knock down a pile of dirt that was left there. You got to do anything like that. And a bucket is going to be your go to tool for any of that. They're very versatile. You could haul concrete in them and stuff like that as well. We do that a lot, and we'll just kind of like shovel the concrete out of the bucket. It gets a little messy if you're not super careful, and depending on the terrain that you're driving over and stuff like that, it can get a little messy. But and then an auger. So an auger head with some bits that go with it, just to go out and dig your holes for you. So those are kind of like the main basic attachments that you really need to have. And then from there, you got a lot of questions still. Like, can you get a concrete truck by the fence? Well, if you can't, you're probably going to want a concrete hopper. Like I said, you can use a bucket. You just got to be careful. You're going to get a little messy. You got to be able to get it from the truck to the hole fast enough. Like, you don't want a concrete truck sitting there half the day waiting on you to unload it. So just kind of think about all of that stuff. But concrete hoppers are super nice. We have some that we made, so you don't have to go out and spend, six, eight, $10,000 on one. You can make one. Ours just is a big box with a chute out the side, and it has a hydraulic little door that opens and closes at the end of the chute. And you can run it down the fence line, open the chute, dump the concrete in, and keep on cruising. And it makes it super quick. And the concrete, since it's inside of a big box, like it stays a little better and doesn't slosh around and make quite as big of a mess. So then another question is, remember, we're doing this 5,000 foot of 8 foot tall commercial fence. Like, can we run a machine all the way along the fence lines? Is it even accessible by a skid steer? And if so, we're going to take like some kind of wire spinner. We have a couple of fence hogs, and that's our go-to that we use. But I know there's multiple brands and a lot of people out there that make them themselves. We had one that was homemade for a while until someone tried to drive it under one of our buildings and smashed it against the bottom, and it got all tore up. But the fence hogs seem to work pretty well. I like how you can like just lay the wire on the ground, tilt it down, grab the wire, and stand it back up. It makes it a little bit easier for your back whenever you're out there trying to do big jobs like this. All right. So of course you're going to need tools, right? Hand tools. So I mean, if you're doing fence, you probably have like some basic fence tools. If you've done a chain link job or tin, then you probably have acquired the basic tools that you need for a chain link job. But again, it all depends on the size of the job that you're doing. Um, and then, as far as hand tools, like I said earlier, I like to try to keep some stuff on hand that I could kind of do some minor repairs out in the field if I need to. If a hydraulic line bust, I don't want to just be down for a few days. I want to be able to pull the line off, go get another one, put it back on, and get back to work. So that's how I like to do things. I like to try to keep going. And a lot of times, like I said, when I was farming, when I put in fence, I mean, I would do that stuff on the night and the weekend and come in here and work in the office during the day, and something breaks down at 6 o'clock in the evening on Thursday or Friday. Like, you don't want a machine just sitting there for days either. So we like to have some sort of like a welder generator. We like the Miller Bobcats. You can get just like a cheap little smaller generator and plug in like a little welder to it, a little MIG box or something like that. That works. Um, and that'll save you some money. Those Miller Bobcats and the Lincolns and stuff like that. I mean, they're not that cheap. There's a ton of them on Facebook Marketplace and other places like that for sale. I've I've bought a couple of used ones over the years, and I mean, it worked out fine for us, but they were normally from people that I knew. I looked at buying one from a guy one time, and this guy said it was a diesel, and that's what I wanted. And so I said, "Yeah, bring it to me, and I'll buy it from you." And so I had a check ready for him and all that. And the guy shows up, and I go out and look at it, and I open up the top, and I see spark plugs in it, and I was like, "Man, this ain't no diesel." And he's like, "Oh, sorry, sorry, sorry. But do you still want to buy it?" I was like, "No, not really. Like, that's not what I wanted. And now I definitely don't trust you." Uh, so you got hand tools. You're also going to need some power tools. Um, Again, we're doing a 5,000-foot job, and we are digging and setting it. So if you're doing the no dig, you're driving post. Obviously, you need post drivers and stuff to do that. But um, for the power tools, a reciprocating saw works pretty well cutting your rail. You can use a bandsaw to cut the rail. I like to have a big, like, half-inch drive impact with some sockets in case I need to change a trailer tire or anything. Again, I don't want to blow a trailer tire and just be down and sit on the side of the road and wait 3 or 4 hours for somebody to come change it. I want to be able to hop out, pick the trailer up, swap the tire, and get back to work. Um, and then I like having a smaller impact too. One, those big half-inch impacts, like, they're fairly heavy, and you don't really want to lug that thing around all day. But also, I mean, they'll just snap like a 5/16 bolt off if you're not careful with it. So having a smaller impact, or maybe even like one of those little, the quarter-inch hex, like, impact driver, something like that that you could use to tighten all your tension bands and stuff. Those are great. A drill, like, I would just have one of those around just in case you need it. We already mentioned a bandsaw, maybe a hammer drill. Are you doing some anchors? Right? Is it a plated post that you're trying to anchor down? You probably want to have a hammer drill for that. And then again, a lot of questions. Are you working where there's, asphalt or concrete or rocks or anything like that? So you might need a jackhammer. You might need to core drill, which you could just hire someone to do. We do that a lot. We outsource our core drilling a lot. We do have a couple core drill rigs, and if we got just, a few holes, or the people we'd normally hire can't get to it fast enough or something like that, then we'll go out there and knock it out. But we normally outsource the core drilling. We actually are outsourcing some core drilling right now on a job that we were doing. We're putting a fence on top of a bridge parapet, so like the little concrete wall that's on the side of a bridge that you drive over. And we go out there and we take, hammer drill and rebar eater, because I'm like, we're gonna hit rebar somewhere. So we take the hammer drill, we go out and we start cutting holes, and we figure out there's like 60 holes out of 150 that have rebar in them. So we pull out the rebar eater and we start going to town with it. And the guys said that they basically sat on top of the drill for an hour, and like, it didn't go through the rebar. I don't know. You can hit rebar that's vertical, right? In a bridge parapet, there's vertical rebar. In that situation, like, you have to just drill all the way down to whatever depth straight through the rebar. But anyway, so we tried that and we're like, well, this doesn't work. So then we come back and talk to our rep, and he says, all right, you need to try these hammer drill bits. I talked to some folks. They say these are the ones that you need. These are going to cut through the rebar. They're going to get the job done. So we buy a few of those. And I mean, all of these bits are, man, I think like 80, 90, $100 a piece. And, we're just buying bits and hoping. And I think both of those times we had them overnighted. And so we get out there, we take these bits and we start going to town, and we got one hole. So I think we used two bits and we made it through one hole, and we were out there for about 2.5 hours. So that didn't work either. So then we had to call around and find somebody that go core drill the holes for us. Well, now the issue was it was a 9/16 inch hole. Nobody had a 9/16 inch core drill bit, so they had to find them and order them and everything. And they went out today and they started core drilling. And I don't know how far they made it today, but I'd imagine it's going to take them a few days. They bought, I think they said they bought like 10 bits, hopefully, to get through the 56 holes or something like that they had to cut. And so fingers crossed they're going to be able to make progress and get that stuff knocked out and get the holes cut for us. But it's that stuff right there that you don't know on the front end of the job, right? You know you're going to hit rebar, right? Because we've done fence on bridge parapets multiple times in the past. We know we're going to hit rebar, but you never know how much. I mean, you might do that job and hit rebar 5 times. You might do it and hit rebar half the times, as we've experienced here. And so you don't get a change order. I mean, I guess sometimes you could. There might be contractors that would talk to you about it. There might be situations where you could, but normally, like, for me, I don't even go down that change order path, because I know right now the job is already supposed to be done, and we're still out there trying to cut holes. And so I guess in an attempt to, like, gain some favor and things like that, I'm like, hey, look, I'm not going to charge you anymore because we're dealing with all this crap, but it's going to take us a little more time. So I try to kind of take that whole like give and take approach, I guess, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. Whether that's right or not, I'm honestly not sure, but that's how I try to do it. So we're out here cutting holes, and this would go on the lessons learned board, right? Because next time, whenever I go to bid in one of these jobs, I know I'm going to plan on having someone go out and core drill half the holes for us. And this job even gets a little bit worse because it gets some kind of like epoxy texture coat on the bridge parapet that has to go in, supposed to go in after we cut the holes and before we put in the fence, but because it took us so long cutting holes, they already put it down. So now we're core drilling, getting, water, nasty water all over everything. We got to try to wash it off. And I kind of have a bad feeling about it, but again, that's part of it. Sometimes sometimes things go well, sometimes they don't. And we just keep telling stories on here about how things are going bad.
And that's how you learn, right?
Right, right. So we do jobs successfully. We are in the process of completing another job right now that's hour and a half or so away, and everything has been going smooth. Knock on wood. We went out there, got everything laid out, got the locates done. There wasn't anything in the way, and we were able to just go to town and start putting up fence. And they maybe finished today, maybe we'll finish tomorrow. I'm not exactly sure, but definitely made progress. So some jobs go well. Another piece of equipment that you're going to need to have on your truck is your PPE. So you can't forget that. That's going to be a very dependent on the job that you're doing. There's stuff that you always need to have, right? You should be wearing like some decent composite or steel toe shoes at least. I like boots, but you could. I see there's a lot of different shoes out there that are like steel toe and composite toe and stuff. I don't like it because I would rather have some support for my ankles and stuff when I'm out there walking around on construction sites. But you should have that. You should have gloves. If you do much with like a razor ribbon or anything, probably some puncture resistant sleeves are a good idea. There is a big difference between cut resistance and puncture resistant, but they do make puncture resistant sleeves. That's a pretty good idea if you ever get into messing with razor ribbon, because what'll happen is you put your arm up there and you get poked. Right. So it's not like it's a razor blade up there necessarily or anything, but it definitely has sharp points and stuff like that on it. So what happens, again, you get your arm poked, and then your natural reaction is for you to like pull back. And so when it goes into your arm and then you yank back, it just rips through your arm. So the puncture is what leads to the injury on the razor ribbon. So like I said, puncture resistant sleeves. Of course, safety glasses, uh, you know, you need those. In my opinion, I see a lot of people don't wear them, but like I said, we wear them around here, and that's one of the things I'm always looking for. If I see somebody running any type of power tool or drill press or anything like that, I'm always looking for safety glasses. So it's pretty common that you get on a job site and you have to have a hard hat and a vest. Some contractors are going to make you have these crazy, like spree-lunking looking hats that have a chin strap and all this stuff. Some of them are cool with just like your traditional plain old hard hat. The vest, kind of similar thing. Some of them are cool with just any kind of high visibility vest. Our guys all wear these kind of like bright orange shirts. That is sufficient a lot of times. But then you get some contractors that are like, it has to be a certain, ANSI class, something or another kind of vest. And I don't know those. I have to go look them up every time. But, you'll get the ones that have to have like the reflective stripes around them and up and down. And then some of them have to be like short sleeve, not just the cutoff sleeve, but kind of short sleeve like a t-shirt. And they'll have some reflective stripes around the sleeves there. So I've said it before, and it kind of just depends on the contractor that you're working for, the property that you're on. If you're at like an oil refinery or some kind of big industrial facility plant, you can normally expect to see a little bit more requirements for the PPE stuff. If you get on, out in the country somewhere, then you don't have to worry about it so much. So actually, when we were on the way to Connecticut, it just so happened that I sat on the plane. Zach and I both went. We didn't sit together. I don't think ever we had 4 flights, 2 there, 2 back, and I don't think we ever sat together. But when we were going there, I sat next to a safety director from a large general contractor, and they're doing a job here, and he was flying from here back home or something. And, so, we got to talk, and I asked him, a lot of questions and stuff like that. And one of the things was about hard hats. And I was like, man, it's always weird whenever we're out in the middle. I mean, we're 800 feet from the building, and they're like, you got to have a hard hat on. And all of our guys complain about it and everything. So we've had an injury before where someone dropped like either a cap, maybe a steel dome cap or a corner arm or some fittings or something like that onto someone's head directly below them. So it was two people working on a hookup on a terminal post, and the guy on the ladder on top dropped something and it smacked right in the other guy's head. So that can happen. Fortunately, everybody was okay. I think he just got like a cut on his head, but aside from that, he was okay. So it wasn't a corner arm, I would say. But hard hat would definitely prevent that specific type of injury. But past that, he was like, well, you don't want the birds crapping on your head. And so I thought that was pretty funny. It's it's always weird when you say something like that and you're just in a room by yourself. Is it even? Oh, no. Thank you.
That better?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, yeah, you don't want the bird crapping on your head, so wear the hard hat. But, yeah, so basic PPE, like I said, steel toe, composite toe, safety toe boots, something like that. Hey, Seth laughed too. I don't know what he laughed at, but he laughed at something. Uh, Safety glasses, hard hat, vest, like those are kind of the basics. And from there, I mean, the sky's the limit. Again, I've said this before. When you're looking at bidding a job, read the specs. Like go through there, and a lot of the bigger contractors, they'll have their like safety requirements as a separate document. It won't necessarily be a part of the specs if it's required by the contractor. If it's required by the owner, it might be included in the specs. But I mean, if there's going to be a lot of safety stuff, normally they tell you on the front end. So, hey, we've talked about scheduling and stuff like that. We did an episode a while ago that was like scheduling pains or something. I've talked about this job that we're doing where we had to core drill the holes. The job was already supposed to be done, all that. So, here's the mistake that we made on that. And I'll own it, right? It was my job. I sold it. I'm managing the installation to some extent. And they call us out and they're like, "Hey, we're ready for you." So they want to have a meeting on site, kind of walk the bridge and look at everything and all that. So we go out there, we do that, and they say, "Well, can you be here in a few days to start core drilling or putting in the anchors so that we can get this texture on?" Yeah, no problem. So we do that, and I already talked about the issues that we've had trying to cut the holes, but today they said, "Are you going to be out here tomorrow to start putting posts in?" And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. You got to understand the way that this fence is made. We have to laser cut plates, and then we have to bend the post, and then we have to weld the pipe on, then we have to have it hot dip galvanized, then we have to powder coat it. Like it's a process to get this stuff done. It's not like I can just make a phone call and get the material. Also, the wire is like a custom height wire, 1 inch mesh, black vinyl coated. So everything about the job is pretty specific, and it's all DOT requirements. So they have like their own, coating requirements and wall thickness requirements and stuff that we have to make sure we abide by all that. So my mistake that I'll own is that I didn't tell them that, right? I signed a contract, shoe fly. I signed a contract with them and kind of went through the whole process at the front end, got them certificate of insurance submittals, all of this kind of stuff, but I never told them anything about a schedule. So what I should have done is I should have prepared a preliminary schedule and sent it to them at the beginning and just said, look, procurement is going to take this long, fabrication is going to take this long, coding, da 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 da, and then given them like a schedule of how much time I anticipate us needing to complete the job. And so again, that's always I think we've progressed over the course of the past year, 18 months. And I think that's where we're at now is when we do a submittal package, we're going to include a schedule with it. And I mean, a preliminary schedule and at least have procurement in there, have any kind of fabrication or coating that we need to do, and then have an installation. And if we have to do gate automation, then I mean the gates need to be there for us to do that, right? So that kind of goes on the tail end and just kind of spell everything out. If we're doing gate automation, we're putting in the loops. I always like to put the loops into like the base coat of the asphalt. So that way they are protected and you don't see them when the project is done. It looks way better than going out there and seeing a bunch of saw cut marks with some, loop sealant on top of it. Uh, Unfortunately, it doesn't always work out, but that's what we try to do. And so all of that stuff could be addressed by giving a preliminary schedule. And at least at that point, I can say, look, I told you what it was going to take. Whether you looked at it and read it and believed it or anything else, I mean, I don't have control over that. But what I could say is that I gave it to you and you didn't pay any attention. So like I said, we're going to make that a standard part of our submittal process is to give them some sort of schedule, tell them how much time we need to do the job, or the alternative that we could have done on this job is we could have just ordered all the material and had everything done and had it sitting here. Kind of goes back to the whole comment I made earlier about leaving material on a job site, though. I mean, what happens when somebody's like, "Oh, I need this dome cap," and they go take it, or "Oh, I need this post," and go take it, or it gets ran over, or whatever the case may be. It's just kind of risky to like keep material for long periods of time and make sure that nobody touches it. So I think the schedule to me is the best way to do it. Everybody's stuff's different. I mean, what if you don't have any room, right? I know there's a lot of people that do like just in time deliveries and try to, maybe have like smaller laydown yards because when they get the material, it's going straight to the job site. I mean, you can't have material for 10 jobs laying there for 18 months and still have room to do anything. So, um, all right. So that's kind of my opinion on the equipment stuff. Again, understand your capabilities, right? If you can do a 500-foot job, then bid a 500-foot job. If you can do a 10,000-foot job, then bid a 10,000-foot job. But I mean, by that point, like you've built up the people, you've got them in the right places, you've got the right training, you've got the right processes, and you know that you can go out and do a 10,000-foot job. If you've only done a 110-foot job around somebody's backyard, don't go out and bid a 10,000-foot job. Like that's a huge jump. You should like progressively grow to that point, right? It's super exciting. Don't get me wrong. To bid a big job, uh, I recently today I bid the biggest job I've ever bid for the second time, and it's definitely to me it was it's a little bit exciting, like the thought of actually doing the job and figuring out how to make it all happen and all of that stuff, which that's a whole nother conversation. But I like to have a plan in place before I bid a job. And I like to really think through the whole process. And I like to be able to say, if the job sells, here's what we're going to do, right? Here's how we're going to finance the job. Here's how we're going to get it done. And that's what I did with this job. But like I said, it's a little bit exciting for me, but the kind of the concern of actually getting the job done and pulling it off is almost overwhelming to that excitement, right? So I almost just don't feel the excitement. I just feel that whole, and what happens if we do sell the job kind of thing. So that's the reason why I like to have a plan because that's the only way I can sleep at night is if I feel pretty confident in the plan. But, anyways, for the equipment, like I said, know what you can do. What Seth said, that's where the excitement is doing something new, then you got to perform. Yeah. Doing something new is exciting. Doing something big is exciting. But I think being realistic about what you can accomplish is a big deal. And also, like I said, I personally like to have a plan. I have right outside on the other side of this wall behind me, there's about $15,000 worth of fall protection out there because someone, not me, someone here bid a job and didn't know that there was any of these fall protection requirements. We got out on the job and every single thing that went on the job site with us had to be tied off. So your hard hat, your pliers, your glasses, like honestly, every single thing that was on your person had to be tied off. And of course, we also had to have a bunch of harnesses, and they were very specific about like the type of yo-yos we were allowed to use and all of this. So about $15,000 worth of fall, fall suppression. Oh man, why did I forget that word? Anyways, sitting out here, no money was put in the job for it or anything else. So you wind up and you can get into that kind of stuff when you don't sit down and think through what all is going to be involved and you don't sit down and read through all the specs and understand like a full picture of the job. That same job, actually, we wound up having to work from Friday evening at about, I think, 6 o'clock. We were able to go on the job site and we were there around the clock nonstop until Monday morning at 5 a.m. when they ran us off the job site. You couldn't be out there during the week. It was weekends only. It was, I mean, it was a really cool thing. So to Seth's point, it was really exciting and it was really cool to see it all done, but it also was pretty nerve-wracking or stressful or whatever you want to say going through the process and leading up to getting the job done. And that job had a ton of prep work on the front end. It was similar to what I'm talking about. We had to get, plates laser cut, weld them together, get the whole thing hot dipped. We had to make a bunch of kick plates and handrail brackets and all kinds of other stuff. So it was a lot of fabrication work and stuff that had to be done before we could ever get out there on site. But it was the interstate was shut down, and so like it was, you had to be there, you had to have everything you needed. So kind of back to the whole question about what do you need to have on your truck. For this, we had all the trucks, right? I think we took like 6 or 8 whatever trucks out there, and I mean that way hopefully whatever we needed was on one of them. So now that we're 42 minutes into this thing, let's talk about selling some commercial stuff here just for a minute, and then we'll call it a night, and we'll pick back up where we left off. Back in January, we did selling commercial 101, and we talked about like the whole business to business world, which is, it has its own complications. It's a different animal from selling to general contractors. So I got a list here of some episodes that we've done in the past that you could go back and listen to or watch or whatever. So episode 3, I already talked about that. I think it's called like Cash is King or Cash Flow or something like that. Talks a lot about the billing process and like what you need to be ready for and what to expect on that. And episode 6, scheduling pains. I mentioned that earlier. So we talked a lot about how, the schedule that you're going to see at the front end and how it actually is going to work out. Oh, we got Josh Cumby here. Josh was out there on that bridge job with us that I was talking about, where we had to get all the safety equipment and work on the weekends and all that kind of stuff. We had episode 8. We had our banker Kurt was on the show with us, and we kind of talked about like some ways you can finance stuff and how to keep your banker happy. And then episode 9. Man, this fly is driving me insane. It just like
Same.
keeps landing on my head. What is going on? Anyways, so episode 9 was we had one of our vendors on here, and so we were able to talk with them a little bit about what they need. And again, your vendors are a part of the team, your bankers are part of the team, your insurance people are a part of the team. Everybody talks a lot. Oh my goodness. Everybody talks a lot about like the culture and stuff like that within your organization, which, don't get me wrong, that's a big deal. But also, there's people that are outside of your organization that are also an essential part of the team. Banker, vendors, insurance folks, things like that. Episode 10, we had an insurance agent on here. So we talked a little bit about commercial insurance and what you need there. 13 and 14, employees and payroll with Alyssa. So we talked a lot about employees, employment status, the whole like W-2 versus 1099 deal. We talked about that. We talked about certified payroll a bunch. So then again, this year, episode number 4 was selling commercial 101. So that was probably like at the end of January. So in that episode, we kind of, again, talked about how there's like 2 different types of commercial to me. There's the general contractor world, and then there's the business to business world. And so we kind of ran through some different scenarios and stuff like that in the business to business world. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start talking some about selling to general contractors. And we'll kind of give a little little bit of information here, and then we'll pick it up next time. Uh, Ilaria, I did
Yes.
not make a long enough agenda for me to sit here by myself. When there's conversation, things go a little bit slower. So I'm sorry. I underestimated how long this would take. And I'm almost to the end already.
That's fine.
Yep, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, stupid fly. Sorry. So I've said it multiple times, like in this episode, even the bigger the contractor, the more difficult they are. Typically, that's maybe not always the case. We're doing something right now where we got like an incidental work order from a really big contractor, and that's pretty simple. I did submittals. They didn't necessarily ask for the submittals though. Like I just went ahead and did them, and I wanted to make sure that they knew what we were getting, or knew that they knew what we were doing. And so I went ahead and did submittals and turned them in, and so we didn't use any concrete on that job. We drove the whole thing, and everybody was cool with it. It's supposed to come down in like a year or so, anyways, and so they didn't mind. They were able to save a little bit of money, and people like that. But again, that's a really big contractor, incidental work order. So that kind of like, circumvented the whole big contract process and everything for us a little bit. So all we had to do, again, submittals, certificate of insurance, and we were pretty much done. So step one is to know what you're getting into. If you're going to start selling to general contractors, you need to know what you're getting into. And that's what we've been talking about for, I don't know, however long we've been doing this now, is kind of trying to like lead you up and make you understand what you're getting into. So understand the billing and payment process. And just to kind of touch on that a little bit, you're going to bill at the end of the month. Okay. So right now is March 21st. And so I'm getting ready to bill. I'll have to bill between now and like the 26th, depending on the job. And what I'm doing is I'm billing for the entire month of March. So I have to predict what's going to be what's going to happen leading up to the end of the month. And from that point, I'll submit a bill, and then I'll get paid normally like mid May. Right. So about 45 days. So if you do something, if we did a if we were working on a job site on March 1st, all right, then we get to bill at the end of March, and then we get paid 45 days later. Like you're, 70 days, something like that, past the time you were working on it when you're getting paid. So again, I think it's very important that people understand that whole process. Also, something really basic that, well, I don't mean to say really basic, but something that we never have really talked about too much is just understanding how to read a set of plans. And that's really important because when you go sign a contract, it's going to say that you include everything in your scope of work. And it'll say there will be language in there that says something like whether it's included in your proposal or not, whether it's included in your submittals or not. I saw a contract a couple weeks ago that said that even if your submittals were approved, it still does not mm, release your obligation to install things according to the plans and specs. So if you went in and it called for a 18-inch footing and you put a 16 on your submittals and they signed off on it and you went out there and started doing 16, somebody can still show up and say, hey, it's supposed to be 18. Um, so just kind of an example, food for thought. I don't know. There was a way around it. You could have a change order. And so it would be normally that's like a no cost change order, but it's just officially telling them that there's something different happening versus what was in the plans and the specs whenever the job bid or currently. Um, so yeah, you're gonna have to know how to go through a set of plans, how to go through a set of specs, and pick up everything that's included in your scope. And if you don't, your contract's still gonna say you're responsible for it, and that just can lead down a nasty path. I've I don't think I've ever really had an experience where we missed something and then we were forced to do it anyways. Nothing's really coming to mind. We've had like I mean, the bridge job we just talked about where we're out there core drilling holes, like we didn't plan to do that. So, I mean, obviously, there's stuff like that that comes along. That was included in the scope. Like, even if we asked for a change order, I think contractually, we're not owed a change order because it was in the scope that we're going to put the anchors in and we have to do whatever it takes to put those anchors in. Um, but yeah, I don't know of any time where we've just like plain old missed a section of fence or something like that and had to eat it. I'm sure it's happened. I'm just not aware of it. So understand how to read those plans. And again, we've talked about this a lot, but understand your capabilities. So you need to understand what you're capable of so that you can bid the job that is right for you. So don't go out and bid a job that is too big. You don't want to be chasing jobs that are too small because, it's too intimidating to bid a bigger job. But just, I would say, for the most part, do the things that you're kind of comfortable with, do the things that you can get done. And if it's something that's borderline, whether you can get it or done or not, then at least come up with a good plan that makes sense before you submit a bid. And then understand your numbers. So I've been doing a little bit of like training with people. I'll offer people like a one-on-one training, kind of what happened like with Simpalo estimating software for commercial fence, and then with PowerHouse show about commercial fence. Like people call me, right, and ask me questions about things. And so I said, you know what? Because I don't have time to spend 5 or 6 or 8 or whatever hours a week on the phone with people. I started doing like some, training or whatever you want to call that, educational stuff. And so I do these like hour-long one-on-one sessions with people. And what I figured out is the first question is, what's your overhead? Right? Because automatically you can know if someone knows their numbers or not whenever you ask them what their overhead is. And I don't mean like down to the penny, right? I don't expect people to know that. I'm sure there's a lot of people that do, but at least have an idea of the percentage. Is it 10, 20, 40, 80%? Like you should have some idea of what it is. And if you don't, then we need to get you working on that. And there's people out there in the world that can help you with that. Your Tony Thorntons and Robert Whitaker and Sean King. Like I know Sean talks a lot about knowing your numbers and he's a big advocate for like getting QuickBooks and doing some pretty decent accounting and stuff like that from what I've heard. So I mean it's a big deal. But anyways, yeah, so that's like one of the first questions I'm going to ask people. And it's a big deal because you need to know that in order to know how to bid a job. If you're going to go out and bid bigger jobs than you've ever done before and try to grow and grow and grow, like you need to know what your overhead is because you need to know how to bid a job. You need to know what to put in the job to make it work out for you, right? Your capabilities. How long is it going to take you to do the job? If you've never done a 3,000-foot job, like you better have a pretty decent understanding of how long it's going to take you. You don't want to put half the time. And if you put twice the time and sell the job, well, it worked out for you. But if you put twice the time and you're, you know, 15% or 20 or 40% higher than the next guy every time, then you're not going to have very much luck there either. So I think understanding the numbers, understanding what margin to sell things at, what overhead, what markups, like whatever word you want to put in there, it's very important. And then understanding what you're capable of is also very important. So, and that's what I have. I think that's pretty much the end of the thing. This fly is driving me insane. Oh,
Yeah.
look at us. 55 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's not too bad. Um, Again, thanks everybody for listening. If you're still here, thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions or anything, I mean, feel free to reach out. You can find us on social media on any of these things, right? Memphis Fence, MFC Manufacturing, Simpalo, and PowerHouse all have social media, all have websites. You can we're pretty easy to find. You can call Memphis Fence Company. I know you can find a number for that. The number for Simpalo is scrolling across the bottom of the screen every week. So just give us a shout if you got questions or if you want us to talk about any subjects or have any guests or anything like that on, let us know. And from that, I think we're done.
Woohoo.
You got anything to add?
No, it was fun though.
Yeah. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I did.
It wasn't so bad for me either. I
Oh,
enjoyed it.
I learned.
Yeah, that's good. Hopefully somebody else did too. And that's the objective ultimately, is to try to help people learn and, you know, help people improve and get better. And maybe we can improve and get better along the way. And we'll share that with everybody. But all right. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank
Um,
you.
have a good night, and we'll see you next time.